Thank you, Leah, for joining me today. I'm excited to talk about your NHRA season. You've had a couple weeks, almost a month to kind of let it settle in. What's been on your mind just kind of in the aftermath of the season?
It was 2 days ago. I counted the number of days since that Sunday, and I think it was 16 days. And I was only counting that because we had already began testing. We had gone to Indianapolis 2 days ago, and people would think that we're insane to test in November in Indianapolis. Like, the ambient temperature was 25 degrees and we were setting up the track temp. Like, we were lucky. Barely got above 50, 55 maybe. But so that's where my head is because we saw the fruits of our testing labors happen or bloom throughout the whole year. And that started with ideas. So we had ideas about how these programs would work. We had to do a lot of testing, more than any other competitor out there. And so since that worked, well, we have the opportunity to test more. So it started like immediately. Once the rigs got back, everyone took a breath. Tony and I, we went to a tropical place for a couple of days, and then came back, and we're just resetting to try and get as big of a jump as we can on next year.
Well, I know you talked a lot this season just about all the testing that you guys did, before the season even started, and kind of the jump start that gave you. So I'm sure it'll pay off again.
I hope so. Yeah.
Well, I have to take you back to Pomona because that final round was just so incredible, winner take all between you and Doug. Just talk about, I guess, the emotion, of that, knowing that, it was down to this run, like the entire season came down to that. I mean, what was that like?
So it's hard to explain those exact moments without explaining the moments that led up to it and what that mentality was like. When Saturday night, although qualifying, settles down, we know what the points are, and you look at the ladder and you go, well, we have a tough day. We have the toughest of days, really. If you were to make a tough day, this is everything. It's the epitome of the toughest of days. And if we're going to win this championship, we have to win the entire race. Barely, but it's doable. So that was the theme, basically, of how doable this is. And we are extremely capable. And as each round on Sunday ticked off, I will say the most nervous I think that I've ever been was first round, because you can't make it to the second or the semis or the finals. We don't get past first round. And Tony Schumacher is always difficult. And we were, we weren't first pair out, but we were pretty quick out there. And I had been practicing, visualizing, being in the line in these moments. And I had cut a great light against Tony, and we won that round. And then after that, that's when I took a big breath and went, okay, I just did this. We had a long tree. Tony, I think, took a little while to stage, or I did. I don't really remember, but I was waiting for the tree to come down, and I literally screamed inside my helmet, because that's my outlet. Because the other outlet, your foot goes down, and the tree hasn't dropped. So I know that that's a problem of mine. So I have these other things I practice, and it happened. We're staged, the tree comes down, and I go, down! And then I left. So I'm like, okay, if what I've been practicing gets me through that, and you take it into the second round, and we have Antron, and he's multi-champion. Again, first round, 8-time world champion. Antron, 3-time champion. We were prepared for this difficult day. We both smoked the tires. I had advanced by the way that I pedaled the car and gained traction. And that was what we considered the lucky break in the day. If you're going to win a race, you usually have one lucky round. And so we're like, okay, that was it. Torrance, this is the round that really made you feel like you were doing something. You look in the staging lanes, and you, Torrance, Justin, Doug, any which way that someone won or didn't win, had massive implications to the championship on that one round. Now you could say, and I look back and go, oh, what about first round in Vegas? Or what about that final round in St. Louis? They mean something, but nothing means like this means, because it's points and a half and everyone's feeling that same pressure. And I think that's what's cool. You've got this Instapot basically of the perfect top 4 ingredients, and you know, who's going to make it out, who's going to cook the best in this. So I was proud of myself for getting a jump on Steve and that team, just because he's really the one I've had my eyes on all year. Doug came escalating through everybody at the end. But when I won the semifinal against Steve, it was a humble sense of accomplishment, because that alone, I knew the implications of those actions. He no longer had the championship. I just took him out of the race of the gunning and put ourselves in it. So because Steve and I share, I feel like, a very great relationship, mutual respect for each other and our teams, that makes that racing that much more difficult. I was eager to see if he was going to play a game or if he wasn't. And there's only so many times you can look at this, right? It's like once a year. Pomona 2, World Finals. What are people going to do? You have people that are outside the countdown that play games with people that are in that for a championship chase. That usually doesn't end up so well. So him and I, we both stayed shallow, and he had a hole out, and that's unfortunate. But moving into that time frame between the semifinals and the finals. So I stayed down at the top end to do interviews. My car's gone. I get a ride back from, well, actually, between all that, Matt Hagan had won. And I got to be at the top end when Matt found out. He refused to watch the race, so I watched the monitor. And as soon as I saw Chad Green take that stripe, I turned around and just gave Matt like fire fingers. You won. And he's like, I won. I'm like, you won. And so that was a very cool moment. I already had championship feels on that day. Matt's got it locked in. All right, final round with Doug. I'm driving back in the golf cart with Ned Walliser, who is one of our VPs for NHRA. And he goes, this is going to be weird. I've always driven the golf cart in front of the grandstands, but no one's ever cheering for me. And I go, oh, okay, well, I have hundreds of people that came from Havasu, my hometown, my friends across the country. 6 of them flew across the country, my girlfriends, for this. They're in the stands. They all got matching shirts. Like, it's a scream fest. So we roll by. They're doing all their cheers and chants. And Ned shows me, he's like, look at this. I have goosebumps. I've never seen that before. I've never felt that before. It's somebody cheering while I'm in that same vehicle. So I'm excited. I get dropped off at my pit, yell at the guys, great job. But everything has really stayed the same. The music's the same. The hustle's the same. There's a million people outside of our fence area, our ropes, and they're analyzing that run. I'm up there with Neil, and all we just start to say is, we didn't come this far just to get this far. You know, it's you got to say something, but you can't be me. I'm not ever somebody that's really excited. Yeah, that's like, you know, I don't know, what's that, counting your chickens before they hatch type thing. It's moving on a lot of final rounds. You celebrate and get excited later. So I was confident in my abilities of how I performed all day. So I didn't have to veer from that or practice any special way. I went, I'm doing the best I could do. That's all I pray for. That's all I ever pray for, is that my competitors and I are safe and that I can drive to the best of my ability. And so going up to the lanes, I'm listening to the same song that I'm listening to that entire day, which was Rap God by Eminem. I like hard hitting stuff. And then I start to see a lot of people in the staging lanes gravitating towards the starting line. And and I'm not looking at any of them. I'm aware that they're there, and I'm aware what championship rounds look like. Seen them. We've all watched them. And instead of being afraid about it, I had done enough practicing and conditioning to be excited. And so I was excited. I was proud to be in that moment. And then I just put my blinders on. All I really saw was Dorner in front of me, who signals me for the burnout. My crew chief, Neil, that flips me the switches, that when we start everything. And that's it. I mean, the run for me, I made sure that it felt like all the other ones, because I cannot afford to operate in a pressure cooking situation because I haven't done it very often. I only know what I can do. So I did the same job that I had been expected of myself, to be stage shallow and cut a 60 light, where at the beginning of the year, I was hard pressed to get out of the hundreds. Doug deserved every bit of that win, in my opinion. But that day he earned it on the world stage. And when I hit the chutes, and I know it was close because I didn't see him. If you see the other car, you're way behind. You don't got a chance. I never saw him. So when I hit the chutes, the finish line, looked over, saw his win light, I just took a big breath and went, I said a cuss word. And then I immediately felt good. I mean, good for Doug. It's a very similar situation to, I think it was 2019. I was against Clay Milliken in the final round at Bristol. He'd never won an NHRA national event in Top Fuel, and his son had just passed. If I won, like, no one's cheering, like, crowd favorite, Clay Milliken in this situation. I'm not oblivious to Doug Kalitta, crowd favorite, industry favorite in this situation. And ultimately, it was not our day. It was not our time, but our time will come. And Doug is a perfect example of executing that.
Well, Tony was talking, I think it was yesterday on Race Industry Week, how, I don't know if this is true or not, but he was saying he was calm going into the final round, just kind of knowing whoever won, it was going to be their first, Top Fuel championship, and just kind of talking about his own history racing Doug in sprint cars and stuff, and the respect that he has for him. So I'm sure the championship loss stung, but it had to help that it was Doug, and, he had this history of finishing runner up and all that.
It did. It stung, and it stings in different ways. But especially when you come back and, what you hope to have, you didn't grasp. And I also know the implications for, we didn't finish second. Not winning made us third. Right? That's insane. But those are the facts. And what's also a fact is the number that comes on that check for my guys. Would have been life-changing. Not life-changing, but each crew guy would have walked away with more than $10,000 in their pocket from that championship, at minimum. More or less the extra couple thousand for winning that race. They're on fixed incomes like anyone else. And so these bonuses are the bonus of bonus. So that hurts. As we dissected that run, we were down on power immediately. Like, my 60-foot was slow. Everything was slow. We went up there to run. Here's where our mentality was. Okay, you take Doug, that's going up there multiple times, after however many times doing it. Alan Johnson, they've been I think the quickest all day, close to the quickest all day, except for us having lane choice. We went up to run a 363 or 364. That's something we've only done once, a 364, I believe. So we tried it in qualifying where we fixed some things. We're going to try it again. We think it can hold. And that's how far we missed it. We missed it by 1/10 of a second. Now, we didn't miss it smoking the tires. We didn't miss it by blowing up. But that's that window we'd been working in, is something that gets down the track. But our power level wasn't there. So off the line, 60-foot was bad. My reaction time could have been quicker with it. But ultimately, it gave us, we were still in it if something else happened to Doug. But I guess the takeaway is that was the mentality. We didn't go up there with something safe. We didn't go up there trying to run a 72. We didn't go up there trying to run a 70. We went with all the balls out, and it ultimately didn't work. But that's what it would have taken to even beat Doug. I would have had to have it with my ET right there, an exact perfect light. And if we ran a 63 or 64, we would have been in the hunt, and it would have been right there. So we're the least inexperienced team between those two. But I feel like with the most amount of accelerated progress.
Well, like you said, I know it was disappointing to finish, third and not second, despite, being runner up to Doug in that round. But it's still, I believe, your career best points finish in Top Fuel. How do you, balance being proud of that and, recognizing that progress while also kind of using that disappointment, I guess, to fuel like, hey, we came this close, like this year, we can do it next year?
Sure. I think in a micro way, I experienced this in Denver, where I had performed my very best. I had a legit 32 light, I think it was. Matched ETs to Josh Hart first round, and he cut a 15 light, and I got beat on a hole shot. When I had a 36 light, I got beat on a hole shot. So when you ask, how do you balance that being proud, but how do you keep working on something? It was in that moment, I go, I'm proud of this light, but clearly it's not good enough. So then I tried to work on that more. I tried to make my 30s, 20s. And what happened to me, I got lost. I spent the next 2 races and I lost on hole shots because I should have been okay with that 36 and try to duplicate it or stay in that realm, not try to make it any better. So in regards to this overall picture, how do we be proud of this 3rd place finish, but also improve is what we did to get to the 3rd place finish is we need to repeat that. And where we fell short, and there I could pick probably 3 races, no, more than that. The majority of the countdown, we never really made it a good pass off the trailer. Q1, we joked in Pomona when we didn't make it down in Q1. We went, man, everybody pack your stuff up because we're coming. Like that's how the countdown rolled. We would finally put it together. But if we can get a better handle on Q1, so for us, what that means is our power level has not been right. We are either overpowered, underpowered, trying to make it work when you need to have your fundamentals right out the gate. So that's something that we'll work on there. Cutting good reaction times off the trailer so you can work on them, not trying to chase it throughout the weekend. And we do not have the best leaving car. We are probably 6th or 7th. Or 7th or 8th when it comes to that first 60-foot time. You can't have quick ET down there if you have slow ET down here. So that is our main one of our focal points right now is to get this car vehicle dynamics moving quicker to be like our standard is an 830 60 foot. Lucky if we have an 829. Quickest we've had is 818. You look at Josh Hart or Steve Torrance, they're down there in 809, 810. They're 818s. If they have an 830, it's because they had a hole out at the line. It's some significant problem. Their significant problem is our best. So that we are breaking down the data, focusing on where can we pick up these hundreds here and 100 there, and those hundreds will end up with the difference between a championship and not a championship. And I look forward to proving that next year.